The whole problem with introducing myself is what I do today has got nothing to do what I did before this whole thing started. Many of my memories have become very weak about what my past is, but I'm trying to still connect with a few. So, only thing that I can remember, I never was extraordinary in any aspect of my life. In fact, I was kind of very mediocre or below mediocre in everything. But I had one curiosity, and in that curiosity, I had certain fundamental questions. The main question that I had was, why do people suffer? Now, that was my question. And second question I had is, why can't people see that everything that they are doing in order that they do not suffer is not really giving them the results? Now, some people will say, no, my meditation gives me the results. Some people will say, my going to the temple is giving me the results. Some people will say that my doing all my other spiritual practices are giving me the results. Some people will say that training my mind is giving me the results. Some people will say that uh, through the path of knowledge or through the path of service or through the path of devotion or through the path of surrender, it's all giving me results. But I'm not asking people individually as to whether you are getting results or not. I'm looking into the collective of humanity. And in that collective of humanity, I see that they know a lot, but they are still miserable, they are still suffering. So, my question for me always was, why do people suffer?
Beautiful.
But everyone was talking about what they can do in order to reduce their suffering. But I wasn't interested in that part. I was interested in finding that core answer to the core question, why do humans suffer? Now, I found that people explained that with the karma theory, or people explained that whatever you do, the same comes back to you. Whatever you give, the same comes back to you. So these were the theories that they gave. And then I am like, okay, then why do I give something bad, even though I know it will come back to me?
Right.
Number two, why is it that as far as the karma theory was concerned, my point was we all know that we should do good karma, but why do we end up doing bad karma? That being so, these were the two fundamental questions that I was left with. That why do we suffer? Number one. And number two, are the explanation given for suffering the true cause of our suffering? So this is the questions that I had. But of course, these were questions were much in the background. In the foreground was a question called what is the meaning and purpose of life? And in order to find the answer to that question, I was looking into many aspects of life till finally a downloading happened as an answer to that question. And the downloading came through as 5 levels of responsibility. And in that 5 levels of responsibility, what I was given was that first thing people assume that everyone else is responsible for their life, and that becomes the meaning of their life, creating their victimhood.
Absolutely.
The second response that came was that this person has a little more awareness and realizes that I am also contributing to whatever is happening. And so we are responsible for what is happening to me. And the third level of realization that came through was no one else is responsible. I am only responsible because the world is nothing but a reflection of what I am. People are doing to me in order to tell me what I am. People are delivering to me what I need to know. And the world is nothing but a mirror telling me what I am. This was the third level of understanding that came to me, that I am responsible for everything that is happening to me. And then came the fourth realization. The fourth realization was no one is responsible, which means I just happen to be a collective, a cog in the collective totality. And in that, life is happening in which I am assuming that I am creating. And as a creator, I feel that I am also creating my own suffering. So here the realization came, no one is actually creating suffering individually. Suffering is showing up as a part of the totality of the humanity, and each one is contributing to each other's suffering, each other's pain, and so no one is actually uh, responsible. And that also gave me the understanding that someone is making us dance in order to create this suffering. I didn't know who this someone was at that point of time, but that was a clarity that came through in the fourth level of realization that was given to me. And of course, the final revelation that came through was nothing ever happened. It's all a dream, which means you are waking up from your dream in the night. Currently, the life you have is one more dream. It just so happens that after every sleep, you're waking up in the same dream. So you are assuming it to be real. But when you go to your sleep, you know that you are going to dream, and you wake up and you say that was not a dream. If your dream in your sleep becomes the continuity, you will not call it a dream. You will call that also real, and you will call that a parallel world, or whatever name you want to give. Just because there is no continuity in whatever is happening in your sleep, you call it a dream. And just because there is a continuity in what is happening in your waking life, you call it life or real.
Yeah.
So this is the difference between the two. So these five levels of understanding came forth while I was in my, this was in 2001, and this is of course 2024. So it's almost, or 25 rather, we entered. So it's almost like 24 years back I'm talking about this realization. And of course, in this 24 years, many things have happened. That thing dropped. It was no more a question. What I realized that I had a clarity to deal with the questions of the spiritual people, a clarity I didn't have before. So for a time, I kept on answering to their spiritual questions. I wrote a book called Life is Empty and Meaningless, which is nothing but an amalgamation of those letters, and also the realization of the five levels of responsibility. But that book no more was relevant when my new work started after 2015. So it
Yeah.
was in 2008 that God told to me that leave your business, it is time to go. So I didn't know it was God at that point of time, but that was a very strong voice. I thought it was my intuition. I thought someone very important was communicating to me, because I never had these kind of strong thoughts ever in me that I have to leave, I have to leave. So I just left a flourishing business, a flourishing life, which had its repercussions in my personal life. It destroyed me in every way, my identity, my finances, my family, my social life, and every fabric of everything that we call life was destroyed. And I trusted that voice, but the voice never delivered. So that was one journey I went through, a journey of total destruction. And from that journey, I started using certain healing techniques in order to come out of my depression. I came out. Some of the people who saw the transition, they say, teach me those healing techniques. I started teaching. But then at some point of time, I felt that these are others' technique. I am teaching them. Why not I teach my own technique? So one day I just looked up and said to the universe, if anyone is listening, I would like to have my own technique. And so that was the end of that communication. I came back to my classes, and after some time, there was a non physical being who showed up, and this non physical being actually gave me a technique. Now, I had a condition to that receiving. I said this technique has to be better than what I teach. Number one, it has to deliver more than what I teach. Number three, it has to deliver in real time. You cannot tell me that keep on practicing for 3 months and see the results after that. And number four, it has to be teachable. So these were my conditions, and the being said, yeah, all of them are fulfilled. And so I came to my next class. I taught that technique to them, and I found the technique really works. We were able to shift people's pain, people's suffering. And then after the class, one lady came who was a clairvoyant and had psychic abilities. And she said that, was Shiva in the class? And I said yes, because the being who came and talked with me was Shiva. This is how my journey with Shiva started. I started speaking about many things to Shiva. I started talking about other things, other worlds. And then at some point of time, other deities or avatars started coming in. Krishna came, Rama came. Then the gurus also started coming. Mahavatar Babaji came. Uh, Sai Baba came. So now I was suddenly talking with everyone from the top to the bottom. I could talk with the spirits, I could talk with the deities, I could talk with the angels, I could go into past life in an instant, I could speak to the beings of the lower world, I could speak to the nasty ones, and I could speak to the great ones, I could speak to any of those things you call Buddha, Mahavira, or any of them. And I was like surprised, wow, I have this gift I never knew. And then one day, everything shut down. And I thought, okay, I might have lost the gift that was given to me. So I was just waiting, and then someone came and said, now you have to work for me. I said, okay, and who are you? He said, I'm God. I said, which God? Because I know many gods. He said, no, I'm the supreme God. I said, okay, so anyone above you? He said, no, no one above me. I said, okay, so what do we have to do? He said, I have come here to free my children. I said, who are your children? He said, the souls. And I said, well, you are the Almighty One. Why do you need a human? He said, no, I need a human. And you have to work for me. You have to follow my instructions, do exactly what I tell you to do. And we will now start the work together. And then I told to that being, listen, I do not know who you are. Maybe you are God. Maybe you are the hallucination of my mind. Maybe you are an angel. Maybe you are a guru. Maybe you are a deity. Maybe you are the devil. I do not know who you are. And that being so, I will not revere to you. I will listen to you, but I will not accept you. I will constantly place you on a pedestal of doubt. I will not have any reverence for you. I will not be disrespectful, but I will have no reverence. And he said everything is perfectly all right. And so my journey with God started on the foundation of I don't believe in him, but I am going to follow the instructions given by him. And this is how the journey with God started. And then God would take me to the different books, to the different scriptures, to the different people, to the different interviews, to the different writings. And God would say, pick this up, pick that up. And then he would remold it. And the collection of all these things created a workshop 3-day workshop, which I started delivering. And this workshop basically was the place where we were looking for 300 people. Unfortunately, I found getting 300 people to work with God, to align with the will of God, was so difficult that it took me 5 years before these 300 people agreed to join, to come and be with God, in spite of the fact that God was not giving them anything. So finally, when we had this 300 people, and then within a period of 2 years, we completed that work. Now, you can imagine that freeing the souls, we had to do a work that was not within the realm of the third dimension, that was not within the realm of human understanding, that was not within the realm of our five senses, that was not within the realm of anything that any human has ever read in the scriptures or ever heard from any guru. In fact, everyone starting from Shiva, starting from Buddha, starting from Mahavira, starting from Babaji, starting from to the Sai Baba, and the demons and the everyone in the lower world, everyone would come into the class, and including the king and the counterpart of the king, which is Kal Bhairav, who stays in the Patal Lok. All of them would come and just be in the class and observing the work that we were doing.
I'll just, Pradip ji, I'll introduce means about Kal and Shiva, all that little later. So I just, because you will go so much in the flow, so I'll just take you little few steps back that when you said the five levels of responsibility, first is victimhood, second one is we are all responsible, third one is I am responsible, the fourth one was, fourth
No
one
one, no one
no,
is.
no one is responsible. And the fifth one is it's all a dream. So I have been hearing this statement, it's all a dream, so many times with so many people who have been saying like Lao Tzu, if you have heard, there's a very famous
Yeah,
is that, am I, he had a dream where he was became a butterfly, and he then got up and all his disciples saying, why are you so confused? He says, I don't know whether what is real, whether I am dreaming that I had a dream about I became a butterfly, or a butterfly is dreaming that it has become Lao Tzu. That's a famous quote. So,
true.
yeah. So, can you just take us there and then take us further?
Okay, it was actually, if I'm not mistaken, Chuang Tzu who
Yeah,
said this.
Lao Tzu.
So this was another guy, but of course my pronunciation may not be correct.
Yeah.
The point here was he left the humans with a riddle,
Hmm.
because he never answered what was the conclusion he came to. He left people with a question that, are you the one who is dreaming, or are you the one who is being dreamt?
Right. Right.
And in that question, he is actually inviting people not to be so serious about all their conclusions, about all their righteousness, about all their uh, judgments,
Right.
about all their making others wrong, and
Yes.
to take life a little less seriously.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a dream, irrespective of who is dreaming it.
Hmm.
And if you get that it is a dream, you can actually now relax. The whole
Ab-
problem is people cannot relax.
hmm.
Even the spiritual people cannot relax, because they have to do 3 hours of meditation, they have to do 2 hours of mantra jap, they have
Hmm.
to do 1 hour of seva, they
Hmm.
have to go and be with their guru, they have to follow certain guidelines, and if they break something, they go into guilt, and if they achieve something, they go into pride. They feel that they are special. If they have some kind of spiritual experiences, they want it back again. The whole problem is no one is able to relax, because the fundamental requirement to relax is you want nothing from life.
Beautiful.
If
Yeah.
you are wanting anything from life, whether
Mm.
it is materialistic, whether it is religious, whether it is spiritual,
Yeah.
you will never be able to relax.
So
And that,
since you came to this thing, you can just explain, because like in one of your talks, you beautifully explained that the whole suffering is in these three modules, what you call it, you know, materialism and this materialism, spiritualism, and religion. So on that, you can now take us
okay,
forward.
basically, a person who is materialistic, what does he want? He basically wants the pleasures of life.
Right.
And in order to get these pleasures of life, anything that would give him the pleasure of life, he wants to accumulate, he wants to undergo, he wants to experience. The second thing a materialistic human wants is he wants to control life.
Right.
So he wants pleasure and he wants control. And in order to control life, or rather the people around him, he wants to gather all kind of strength. It could be the strength of knowledge. It could be the strength of skills. It could be the strength of networking. It could be political strength. It could be business strength. It could be monetary strength. It could be the strength of those who are tantrics. So they also have strength and they are also materialistic. Apparently, they seem to be spiritual, but they are materialistic because they are wanting to control something.
Hmm.
So, pleasure and strength, control and pleasure takes you into the materialistic world. Now, what is the religious world about? The religious world about is actually that you want heaven on earth and you want to go heaven after you die. So, what
Hmm.
is heaven on earth? You want a life that is peaceful, where you are not disturbed, where you do not have much accidents, where you do not have disease, where you do not have monetary problems, where you do not have relationship problems, and you are willing to do all kind of religious acts, whatever they are, depending on what your religion is, in order that your life is peaceful, which is you have heaven on earth, and
Hmm.
you want to ultimately go to the actual heaven after you die. This is all the religion is. So religion tells you that you should be a good person, you should act in a good way, and you should behave properly, you should take care of others, you should serve, you should do your worshipping, you should please your deities and ask the deities what you want. This is all that every religion is teaching you.
Absolutely.
And then there comes a third one, which is about spirituality. Now, what basically is the spiritual person wanting? The spiritual person has realized that no matter what my life is, it is going to be suffering. Whether I suffer or the people around me whom I care for suffer, both is suffering. Even if it is not my people, I have to look at the suffering of other people. So I do not want to come back into this world which is rooted in negativity, which is rooted in suffering, and which is rooted in pain. They want to now escape this whole reincarnation game. And for that, they are willing to do whatever they need to do, whether it is meditation, whether it is mantra jap, whether it is kriya yoga, whether it is being with a guru, whether it is purifying their body, their mind, whatever it be that their path is, they are willing to do in order that they become free from the cycle of birth and death. So these are the three things which binds the humans.
Yeah, you also say that, the whole, you have divided that there are two different philosophies. One is from the West, one is from the East. If you can explain those two modalities.
Okay. So basically, the East is interested in liberation.
Yes.
The West is interested in salvation. Now, how come they both have different priorities? As a human, we are supposed to have the same priority, because as a human, we have our same suffering. As a human, we have our same pain. Then how come the goal is different in the East and in the West? Now, by the West, I just mean that beyond India, which starts from the Middle East all the way to America.
Right.
How come the goal is different for that group of people? And the interesting part to know is that basically it is the narrative of these two groups of people that are giving them their goals. And the basic narrative is the East says you will be born again and again and again.
Yeah.
So for us, what is important is liberation, which means I do not want to take birth again, and this should be my last life. But the West says there is only one life. That means it is already taken care of. So the
Right.
West doesn't care about liberation. What is it that the West cares about? Now, in their narrative, it is written that one day you will be judged after you die. They are now scared about the judgment day. And
Mm.
so they are scared about all their sins. And depending on the religion that you are, these people would go and talk about their sins either to the wall or to the priest or to their mullahs, or do whatever they need to do in order to become free from all their sins. And they will do everything, whatever is known as donation, whatever is known as serving, whatever is known as taking care, everything that their scripture says they are willing to do in order that when they are being judged, they will be sent to heaven and not to hell. The interesting thing is, what then is the truth? How come two group of people have two different goals? How come two group of people have two different narratives? How come two group of people have two different values? Now, this
And
is a
and
fundamental.
and each one feels this is the way and this is right, this is right, this is right. I mean, whoever claims, whether it is the religious or the spiritual or the materialist, this is the way it is. So,
Yeah, because they have been convinced, and this is what we call as the conditioning, unconscious conditioning. It
mm,
is said that if you give religion to a person who has crossed 21, who has the capacity to discriminate, who has seen the world, the chances are no one will go to any religion. In order to make a person religious, you have to make them religious before they figure out what they have been conditioned into.
right.
So, this is the whole game of religion.
And they say the first 7 years, how well we are conditioned. The first 7 years is maximum. We get it into a unconscious, subconscious.
Exactly. And in this 7 years, what they call as good parenting is you must take them to the church, you must take them to the temple, you must take them to the Gurdwara or whatever your religious places are. Take them, make them bow, make them worship, give them the whatever is called the sweetness of those places so that they love them. And it is said, it's something very interesting. A person comes back fully stressed, okay, at the end of the day. Before they go home, they step into the temple and they come back feeling good. Now, the question is, why is it that they come back feeling good after they have visited the temple? For only one reason, that the ambience of the temple, the sound there, the fragrance there, the sweetness there, the images there takes them into a place called their childhood. And
Mhm.
that rejuvenates them, that heals them, that gives them the experience of that sweetness of life. And they come out of the temple believing they have received the grace of their deities.
Yes, coming down to now deities, you have come to that part. So I will ask you to introduce, because that book, what is this book about? And uh, what is this book about? How many worlds are there? How many beings are there? On those aspects you can share and introduce the now whatever Pradeep ji will be sharing. He'll be introducing the deities and the four types of gods which he has written in the book. Again, I'll just show this book. Okay. It's a beautiful book. I would suggest everyone to read it. If not, there are many, 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 many videos of Pradeep ji on the YouTube. And the funny part, one of our people who was sharing, I shared a few videos to her. First one or two, she said, I cannot understand. I am not able to. Then she tried to avoid seeing your videos, and she's saying, but whenever I'm opening, that only picture will come, that only picture is coming, that Pradeep ji's picture is coming. So she went on seeing, and then now she is very clear with her, I mean, connected with you also. So coming back to what is this book about, and how many worlds are there, how many beings are there, as per what you say.
Okay. See, this book happened after we closed the workshop. Now, in the workshop for 3 days, I was giving huge amount of informations. I was working with the people. I was interacting, asking questions. The workshop was a totally different ball game because if you are there from morning 6 to or morning 9 to evening 6, you are speaking huge amount of you have to deliver huge amount of material because that was for 3 days, and there was no kind of process that I would take them through. It was just I was speaking, speaking, speaking. So which means I was speaking a lot. uh, After the workshop ended, now God said, my job for my children is over. I have opened the door which was shut down, and now my children can go back whenever they want to go back. So that job was over. Then God said, now I will work for the humans, because all along I was telling God, I don't care for your children. I care for the humans. I care for the suffering, and that the suffering and pain of the humans. If you can do something, that is what I care about. So I will work for you, but in return, you have to do something for the humans. Now, God said, listen, there isn't much I can do for the humans. Why? Number one, you belong to someone else. Number two, your story is already pre written. It is already decided you will have disease. It is already decided you will lose money. It is already decided you will have accidents. It is already decided people will backstab you. It is already decided all the toxic people will be in your life. Now, I'm not going to change any of these things because
Hmm.
it is pre-written. And if I change it for you, I will be disturbing the stories of thousands of people who are connected with you. So I'm not going to do that also. So I'm going to give you nothing basically, in short. So whatever we call as manokamna purti, which is fulfillment of all our desires, God said, I'm not going to fulfill your desires. So what can I give you? I cannot free you permanently from your suffering and pain, because in order to free you from permanently from your suffering and pain, what I have to do is I have to make you enlightened. But enlightenment is something that happens if it is in your storyline. And it cannot happen if it is not in the storyline. And that being so, I will not even make you enlightened. And since I am not making you enlightened, I cannot give you permanent happiness, permanent peace, permanent bliss, or whatever you call that enlightenment state to be. So now a human will ask, neither you will give me anything in the materialistic world, neither you will give me anything in the spiritual world. What are you going to give me?
Hmm.
Now, this is something where we tell people, try out God for 30 days. Even I do not know whether God will at all give you anything, or whatever God is going to give you is going to have any value for you. So only you can find out if God gave you anything, and number two, if that has any value for you. So I leave people at that place, but I make it very clear to people, do not expect anything in the materialistic world and do not expect anything in the spiritual world.
Because you speak something in one of many of your talks as raga dvesh. So, you can share up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going in a different direction. Okay, now you put me in another direction. Okay.
But we'll cover all the directions by the end. I'm sure we'll cover
It's
all.
a very, in order to cover all the directions, I will need to speak for days non-stop. But that's not the point here. The point is rag and dvesh. Basically, humans have suffering because either they are wanting something or mm, or they have fear of something. So it is either fear or it is either wanting. So everything, if you bring down, of course, Buddha said that it is rag and dvesh, it is attachment and aversion. That is how Buddha was explaining it. But God said, no, it is about actually wanting and fear. So basically, what is rag? It means attachment, and that means you're wanting something. And what is dvesh? You are not wanting something, but that also is rooted in wanting only. So rag and dvesh both are covered in that wanting. But yeah, there is something called fear, which is not a part of rag and dvesh. It is a totally different dimension. And the fear is at multidimensional. You have fear which is physical or visceral. It is almost like it keeps you alive. It saves you from many accidents because instinctively you move away. It saves you from uh, many situations because you are scared and you don't step into that area. So fear does have a lot of positive aspect, but it is also because of fear that you are not able to interact with people. You cannot interact with groups. It is also because of fear. There is a fear of failure and there is a fear of success. You also have a fear of rejection. You also have a fear of being judged. You also have a fear of not being accepted by some group whose acceptance you are wanting so badly. You also have a fear that one day you will be all alone and no one will be in your life. So we have multiple fears that keep on running us and that keep on creating our pain and suffering. So pain and suffering is created through the fear and it is created through the wanting because number one is you don't get what you want, and number two, even if you get what you want, you finally realize that is not exactly what you really wanted, and you remodify your wanting to something else, which means what we call as the mind. It is perpetually wanting and perpetually keeping you unsafe.
Hmm.
So these are the two basic programmings of the mind. So mind can be looked at from various aspects. One is, I said, it keeps you, make you want, and it always makes you feel unsafe. Also, you can look at mind as it is taking you towards, it is wanting something to come to you and it is pushing something away from you. This we call as attachment and aversions. You
Mhm.
can also look at mind as conscious, subconscious, and unconscious.
Hmm.
You can also look at mind, the lower mind and the higher mind. So, depending on how you look at mind or how you create your narrative, you give that description or that structure to the mind. So actually, you do not know the mind. You just have one narrative, and on the basis of that narrative, you are creating the structure of the mind. So this is what mind is all about. And mind basically was created so that you remain connected with the king, so that you do not go to God, so that you continue to create the food for the king, so that you constantly suffer and have pain, no matter how rich you are, no matter how successful you are, no matter how healthy you are, no matter how knowledgeable you are, no matter how balanced you are. Because even if you are a perfectly balanced person, and even if the world looks at you that this man is totally sorted out, no one truly is sorted out deep inside. It's just that they don't express to others what truly is giving them their suffering, their pain. And if you want to read about Leo Tolstoy, here was a man who was so brilliant, who was so sorted out, whom life gave everything. And yet, you can see the way this person was moving through different phases and ultimately having exhausted all his mind, he had to come to a phenomena called God in order to bring some kind of peace to his mind. So, balanced people may look to be very sorted, but they are not sorted. Internally, they are in denial, and internally, they do not want to examine certain aspects of their mind, and that is why they are appearing to be sorted.